Welcome to Sweet World Podcast, the show where we dive into the best tips, tools, and strategies to help you live smarter and reach your goals faster. In today's episode, we're going to discuss a powerful topic: how to learn fast, whether you're a student, professional, or simply someone who wants to learn more quickly. We've got you covered with science-backed strategies and practical tips to help you absorb information like never before. So let's get into it. Before we dive into the techniques, let's first talk about why learning quickly is so important. Think about the world we live in. Technology, industries, and the job market are changing at a rapid pace. The more skills you can acquire, the better equipped you'll be to handle these changes and seize new opportunities. But here's the catch: learning doesn't have to be slow and tedious. When you learn faster, you have more time to apply your knowledge, and that's where the real impact happens. Learning fast means more growth, greater success, and increased adaptability. Whether you're studying for exams, learning a new skill for your job, or even trying to pick up a new hobby, being able to speed up your learning process is crucial. Now let's get into how you can make learning faster work for you. We're going to break it down into practical, actionable steps that you can start using right away. Secondly, the science behind learning fast. To start, let's take a deeper look at the science behind learning. At its core, learning is about building connections in your brain. When you take in new information, your brain creates neural pathways, and the more you practice or engage with the material, the stronger these pathways become. But here's something interesting. When you first learn something, those pathways are weak and fragile. This is where the concept of spaced repetition comes in. Research shows that revisiting information at increasing intervals helps to reinforce these pathways. So instead of cramming everything into one sitting, break your study or practice into sessions that spread out over time. It's like planting seeds in your brain and watering them consistently for the best growth. Let's talk about an example. Imagine you're trying to learn a new language. The first time you learn a new word, the connection in your brain is pretty weak. But if you revisit that word a day later, then a week later, and so on, you strengthen that connection until it becomes a part of your long-term memory. Now we will mention the most important techniques for rapid learning. These strategies are used by top performers, students, and professionals alike. Let's break down a few you can start using right now. First up is active recall. This technique is simple. After learning something new, test yourself. Instead of passively reading through your notes, close the book and try to recall the information. This forces your brain to work harder to retrieve the information, which strengthens your memory. Active recall is especially powerful for subjects like science, math, and languages. For example, if you're learning new vocabulary, try to recall it without looking at the notes. If you get stuck, check and try again. As we mentioned earlier, spaced repetition is another powerful technique. You might have heard of apps like Anki or Quizlet that are based on spaced repetition systems. These apps help you review material at intervals designed to optimize retention. But you can apply this method to anything you're trying to learn. Just revisit what you've learned the day after, then in a few days, then in a week, and so on. Another great strategy is the Feynman technique, named after physicist Richard Feynman. The idea is simple. Teach what you've learned. Find a way to explain the concept in simple terms, as if you're teaching it to a child. The act of teaching forces you to organize your thoughts, clarify your understanding, and identify any gaps in your knowledge. This is especially helpful for complex topics. Let's say you're learning about a concept in physics. After reading about it, try to explain it out loud to yourself, breaking it down into the simplest terms possible. This process helps you truly grasp the material. Next, let's talk about the Pomodoro technique. This method is great for maintaining focus and avoiding burnout. You work in short, focused bursts, typically 25 minutes of work, followed by a 5-minute break. After 4 Pomodoros, you take a longer break. This system helps you stay fresh and avoids the mental fatigue that comes from long, uninterrupted study sessions. It's also flexible. If you're studying for an exam, you could use a Pomodoro session to focus on one subject at a time, ensuring that your brain doesn't get overwhelmed by switching between topics too frequently. Another technique you might find helpful is called interleaving. It involves mixing up different subjects or skills during your study sessions, rather than focusing on just one thing at a time. While this may feel like it's slowing you down at first, research shows it leads to better long-term retention. So if you're learning a language, you might study vocabulary, grammar, and speaking practice all in one session, rather than focusing on only one of those areas. But there is an important role in learning, which is role of focus and rest. Learning fast doesn't just rely on the techniques we've discussed. It also depends on your ability to focus and manage your energy. One of the biggest barriers to fast learning is distractions. In today's world, there are constant notifications, social media, and even multitasking. Research shows that multitasking can actually slow you down, as your brain has to switch between tasks. To stay focused, try creating a distraction-free environment when you're learning. Turn off your phone, close unnecessary tabs, and set a clear goal for each session. And don't forget about rest. It's easy to feel like the more time you spend studying or working, the better. But your brain needs time to process and consolidate what you've learned. So make sure to get quality sleep, take breaks, and exercise. A healthy body leads to a sharper mind. Sometimes, despite our best efforts, learning can still feel tough. Whether it's procrastination, burnout, or simply feeling overwhelmed, it's important to recognize and address these challenges. Procrastination is one of the most common hurdles. If you find yourself delaying tasks, try the 2-minute rule. Commit to doing something for just 2 minutes. Once you get started, you might find it easier to continue. Another tip is to break your tasks into smaller, more manageable chunks so they don't feel so overwhelming. Another challenge is the feeling of burnout. To avoid this, take breaks, prioritize what's most important, and set achievable goals. Remember, fast learning isn't about cramming for long hours. It's about smart focused work. Before we wrap up, here's a recap of the key takeaways. 1. Use active recall to test your memory. 2. Practice spaced repetition to improve long-term retention. 3. Teach others to solidify your understanding. 4. Apply the Pomodoro technique to stay focused without burning out. 5. Get enough rest and prioritize breaks to support learning. Learning fast is all about working smarter, not harder. And remember, like any skill, the more you practice learning effectively, the faster you'll get at it. So keep experimenting with these techniques, find what works best for you, and keep pushing the boundaries of what you can learn. That's all for today's episode on how to learn fast. We hope these tips will help you become a more efficient learner and achieve your goals faster. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could use a learning boost. Thanks for tuning in to Sweet World Podcast, and we'll see you next time.